Hey, what's up everyone? How's it going? This is Watch. Hope you guys are all doing well. So several years ago, we did our first comparison with the Xbox One and PS4. Now there are newer versions of the large format consoles in a much more compact size. We're going to compare the One S versus the new PS4 Slim edition. And what we're going to do is basically look at the side-by-side physical differences between the two. Obviously, the internal hardware stays the same as the original, but we'll briefly go over it and obviously talk about content and advantages and disadvantages that each console presents. So basically, if you're interested in still getting an Xbox One or a PS4 Slim, here are compact solutions that come in a relatively affordable price tag. So let's see which one is best. Now, physically speaking, the Xbox One S is a drastic reduction in terms of size compared to the original Xbox One. It's actually 40% smaller, but it's still not as compact as the new PS4. So here's a side-by-side size comparison. Both consoles come with an integrated power supply unit, so you don't have to worry about dealing with a large power supply brick like the original Xbox One, which is awesome. And internally, they are basically the same as the original next-generation consoles. They both feature an 8-core AMD Jaguar-based CPU, as well as AMD-based CPUs. Technically, the PS4 Slim has a little bit higher GPU throughput of 1.8 teraflops versus 1.4 teraflops, but in most cases, games are going to look very similar on both platforms. It's really up to the developer to take advantage of whatever the hardware has to offer. Now, in terms of overall storage options, you can get the PS4 Slim in either the 500 gigabyte model or the 1 terabyte model. The One S also comes in a couple of different configurations, up to 2 terabytes of internal memory. Now, the really cool thing is, just like the original PS4, you can upgrade the internal memory of your PS4 Slim. It's now even easier with this nice side access gate. You need the right Phillips head screwdriver, but it's a pretty easy process to do. Perhaps we'll even do a tutorial about upgrading the hard drive to like a 2 terabyte SSD or something to get faster and more games onto your PS4. So check out the description down below for that video. Now, in terms of ports and connectivity, on the PS4, you have two front-facing USB 3.0 connections to hook up controllers and other devices. At the back, you have connections for gigabit Ethernet, a HDMI 1.4a connection, as well as a auxiliary connection for the PlayStation camera. Unfortunately, what's missing over here is the optical audio connections. For all you hardcore audiophiles out there, that's going to be one thing that's going to be lacking in this new system, sadly. Now, connectivity is where the new Xbox One really strives in. Starting at the front of the device, we have a lower mounted USB 3.0 connection for charging your controller or hooking up different devices. You also have an IR blaster at the front, so that can actually be used to turn on different home theater devices such as your TV or audio connection. So that's kind of cool. It eliminates the use of a potential remote control. So when you turn on your Xbox, you can set it up so it turns on your TV at the same time, which is pretty darn awesome. At the back, you have an awesome variety of connections, including a HDMI 2.0 connection, which is going to be good for 4K resolution at 60 hertz refresh rate, which is a pretty big deal for actually playing Blu-ray discs that are rated in ultra high definition 4K resolution, as well as playing potentially games upscaled to that resolution. Now, this isn't technically a 4K console, but it can do some cool things with some 4K content, whether that be game or media consumption. You still have an HDMI input for a satellite or cable box. If you want to feed in a direct feed for that, you can still use all those great features built into the Xbox One. Like in the original Xbox, you have two other USB Super Speed 3.0 connections, as well as an IR for, again, hooking up different universal remote control solutions, as well as that audio optical out that's missing from the new PS4, and of course gigabit Ethernet connection for the fastest possible internet connection available. Now, the internal upgrades made to both consoles isn't a drastic change, especially when you take a look at the PS4. It's basically the original PS4 cramped down into a smaller, more compact package. The most notable change is to do with the optical drive that's built into the PlayStation 4 for your Blu-ray disc and your games. So the mechanics of that system has been greatly reduced in terms of noise and vibration. If you remember, the original PS4 at times could sound like a blow dryer when playing different games or watching movies. So that's definitely a nice improvement. The cooling performance hasn't been really improved from the original PS4. In fact, in some cases, after several hours of gaming with the new Slim edition, it did get a little bit hotter than I would like it to be, and certainly I didn't have any of those issues with the Xbox One S cooling performance or noise levels. Now, with the latest edition of the PlayStation software update, we now have support for some HDR games and video content on the new PS4, so that's not actually a hardware change that happened, more of a software change that happened across all PS4s. The new Xbox One S, on the other hand, has a couple of more notable hardware upgrades. Firstly, as we mentioned before, it's certified for HDMI 2.0, so you have the capabilities to actually view 4K content at 60 frames per second, which is going to be great for some potential 4K gaming applications. Although this is not certified for 4K gaming, it can certainly upscale some of your 1080p to look a little bit sharper on a 4K image and display. And obviously, it has full Quad HD support for Blu-rays, which is a big deal, especially if you're going to watch a lot of 4K content on any kind of system. It looks like you could have a pretty good deal when going with this new One S. The other thing too is the controllers on both platforms have been upgraded. So starting with the One S, the new controller is pretty much identical to the original Xbox One controller. It features a little bit more of a texture, grippy overall finish, but not a huge difference. It also has exchangeable color covers as well as a better overall wireless range, because now this is a Bluetooth compatible controller, and that's going to give you better overall battery life and a potential range. And with that Bluetooth feature, you're going to have full support for PC connectivity as well, so you can actually game with this controller directly with your PC without potentially any adapters, which is awesome. On the other hand, the new PS4 controller features an LED strip light just above the touchpad, which is a nice little addition. And when you have the controller plugged into your console, it can actually transfer the signal data back and forth, unlike the previous controller, which was just charging the battery and was still connected using the wireless system. So now with this wired data connection, you could potentially have less input lag and better overall latency, which could be a huge advantage for competitive gamers. Now, if we were to make a hardware summary between these two consoles, I would have to say that the One S certainly brings a little bit more to the table with this new upgrade compared to the PS4 Slim, which pretty much from a hardware standpoint isn't really changing anything from the original PS4. So in most cases, if you're in the market for one, if you could find the original PS4 for cheaper, I'd probably say go out and get it, unless you are really bothered by the amount of noise that it produced. There's not really a huge upgrade to the PS4 Slim. Now, on the other hand, the Xbox One S is definitely a nice upgrade from the original Xbox One. Firstly, that thing was huge. It had a separate power supply that you had to deal with. With this one, you have none of those issues and all of the media advantages, including the full 4K Blu-ray compatibility, which makes it one of the most cheapest 4K Blu-ray players out there. So for all you audiophiles and videophiles out there, this is definitely an excellent home theater, all-encompassing solution, not to mention all the great Windows 10 integrations. So from a media standpoint, the Xbox One S is definitely a no-brainer. Technically, I still think that the PS4 is a little bit stronger when it comes to the overall gaming experience and content, but that's always going to be subjective depending upon exclusive titles and what type of games you prefer to play on each exclusive platforms. But besides that, that's really it. If you have any specific questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Obviously, we're on the cusp of the new generation of consoles, and it's going to be a little different. They're going to have minor improvements with the new PS4 Pro and whatever Microsoft has to bring. So that's going to be later down the year, and obviously we're going to have a follow-up comparison for that. So definitely stay tuned for all that stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you later. Take care.